And we're live. It is Tuesday, June 10th, the year of our Lord 2025. It is 8 o'clock a.m. And I want to tell you a story. Holly is deathly ill with a complication from a vaccine, proving that JFK was right. And you should, none of you take the shingles vaccine because you're going to miss the show the next day and it's going to be terrible. And it's better to just risk it and get shingles and live in excruciating pain for however long it takes the acyclovir to kick in. And no, that's wrong. It's wrong. It's better to have minor flu-like symptoms for 24 hours, twice over 3 months, which is, I think, the protocol for the shingles vaccine. And maybe you miss the show once and it's not a big deal. The cactus is delighted for the break anyway. And you feel like a dead bear cub left in Central Park by the HHS secretary. But then this magical thing happens. You don't get shingles. There you go. That's the trade. And it's a good one. So be like Holly. Get your shingles vaccine. Miss something like the show. And don't get shingles. Now, here is the problem that that's going to arise, and it's going to arise for my generation of adults, which is that all over the country there are these people who are not being like Holly, and they're getting the shingles they're not getting the shingles vaccine, and they're showing up at 8 o'clock the next morning on their whatever their versions of dog shirt TV is, and they're thinking to themselves, how smart am I that I'm where I'm supposed to be in the morning, even though Holly's not really supposed to be here. She just likes to be here, so she does it a lot. But they're smugly thinking to themselves, I'm I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm not laid up at home with some, bullshit complication or, normal side effect. Look how cool I am. And then 5 years from now, 7 years from now, 10 years from now, they're going to get shingles. And the thing about shingles is, and Matt in the chat is absolutely right. Shingles is a special condition because there are very few medical conditions that are named after roofing materials. And we should appreciate that about shingles. But when these people come down with shingles, they're not going to be like, well, I made a choice not to get the vaccine, and now I am writhing in pain, and I'm going to have a sense of humor about it because it's named after a roofing material. That's not what they're going to do. They're going to they're going to tell people, because we all enjoy telling people about our pain. They're going to stay home. They're going to complain about it. And the question is, do we mock them? And this is, I think, a big moral question in all of our lives. Do we say, why didn't you get the fucking shingles vaccine? It was available. It's been available for 15 years. It would have cost you 2 days of kind of over 3 months time of feeling kind of like shit, and then you wouldn't get shingles, and we wouldn't have to be having this conversation. And I want to say, shingles is a extremely painful condition. It will not kill you, though. So it's not like mocking people who get COVID when they haven't gotten, the COVID vaccine, because COVID will kill them or might kill them. And so this is also, shingles is not contagious, except in the sense that the underlying chickenpox virus is contagious. And by the way, they should have had the chickenpox shot too, although people my age are too old for that. So we all had chickenpox instead of the chickenpox vaccine. And so if you're like my age or Holly's age and you're not getting, you're too old to have gotten the chickenpox vaccine, you're already vaccinated by having had chickenpox, but you're not too old for that someday when you're a little bit immunocompressed, repressed, the chickenpox virus, which has been lurking in your body your entire life, hanging out there, waiting for this moment. It says, and now my time has come. And it lurches out into this rash, and it becomes shingles. And you had a choice whether to allow that or not. And I think the rule should be, if you are getting shingles today, unless you're, getting it in some rare, weird, you've done everything right and you get it anyway, whatever. We don't mock those people. But if you're getting shingles today, it's your fault. And we should make fun of you because you deserve the pain, because you did not choose to avoid it. And that means that you did not choose to not show up on Dog Shirt TV like Holly did today, because you felt, as she put it, like a bear cub left in Central Park by RFK Jr. And, I just want to say that if you have shingles today, it's your fault. It's because you suck and you deserve the pain. And you can screenshot this, me saying this, and put it on Blue Sky or Twitter or whatever. If you have shingles today, don't whine to anybody else. Look inside yourself. You can see through the little, scabs and stuff. Look inside yourself and you will see a person who's a fucking idiot. All of which is a long-winded way of saying that the sun is shining, the birds are chirping, it's going to be a great fucking day. Maybe not for Holly, but she's going to have a lot of great fucking days without shingles because of this not so great fucking day. And you are watching Dog Shirt TV, and it is a goddamn revolution in morning television. One of the revolutionary features is that we don't pussyfoot around the bullshit about, some people choose to get shingles and some people don't choose to get shingles. We say, if you choose to get shingles, don't ask me to spend time, I know shingles really hurt. You didn't have to get it. Hitting yourself on the head with a baseball bat also really hurts. You don't have to do it. Another one of the revolutionary features, and as I sometimes mention, there are many of them, is that every now and then Ev comes on to talk about slumlording, and I show her a genuinely surprising content moderation hack of Chat GPT, which randomly showed up in my LinkedIn messages yesterday from somebody I don't know, but have occasionally corresponded with, who I have sent a message with to this morning, about 5 minutes before we went live, in order to inform him that he can pop up on the show anytime, introduce himself to me because we've never met, and talk about this rather terrifying hack that he has accomplished of ChatGPT's content moderation algorithms. So we are going to surprise Ev with some of these in a moment because this is her specialty. But first, we need a slumlording update from Ottawa. Ev, how is the process of oppressing people with rats and mold and mildew and lead pipes going?
It's going well. I was cultivating a little nest for the rats. The rats, just like behind my. You hear me? Now you do? Or is it my? I
I
am.
can
Okay,
now.
I'm not.
I just didn't realize that this was routing through these headphones, not through because nobody else had spoken yet. So I didn't realize where the sound was coming from. But now I do,
Right.
and I hear you.
Right. Wonderful. So yeah, I was building a little nest for the rats. Just like in my backyard, I had tons of garbage that were like sitting there for a few weeks now. But this morning I finally managed to get them picked. I hope, I really hope that I let them long enough to have my little rats uh, grow up and be ready one day when I open the doors to for them to get in the fall. Otherwise, yeah, no. Joking aside, everything's going well. This morning I went out and I removed a bit of old painting on the windows outside that are like peeling. That is peeling. So I probably shorted my life by a few months, few years because it was probably lead paint. But don't worry, I was wearing proper gear. So basically that's it.
So, how many oppressed tenants do you have now?
For now, I only have one. I've put an ad last week, and I am doing visits this week. And I gathered a surprising lot of people, which is a lot more than I got for my apartment in Montreal, which is still for if anyone has plans to come to Montreal during the summer, I still have place for you guys. I can rent you my former flat. But yeah, I will probably have one or more additional tenants when the falls come.
Yeah, so how many, the house, how many uh, dingy rooms does it have where the roaches can, and bed bugs can attack people? Like, how
I'm
many
planning
rooms could
on
you rent out?
I'm planning on having two other tenants. Who will, each of them will have an office and a bedroom uh, to themselves, and we will share common space. So that's the plan. Everyone has one bedroom and one office.
Can you lean a little closer to your
Yeah, sure.
mic? You
Yeah,
sound
sure.
kind of far away.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Um, all right. So, should I tell you about this hack?
I would love to. Right.
Okay. So, here is the first, and the author of these hacks, I'm just going to keep anonymous because I'm not 100% sure he would want to be identified. But uh, so the let's yeah. So here it is. Let me share it. So some of you, particularly those who are technically adept, might have heard of this before. But there was an old idea during the Cold War that instead of dropping missiles on high value targets, one might instead drop uh, really, really heavy metals. Um, The idea being if something is super, super dense and you drop, first of all, its terminal velocity, if you drop it from high enough, is really, really fast. And if it lands on a small space because it's really dense, it could penetrate, say, reinforced concrete. The problem is, of course, heavy metals are really expensive, like gold. And so, if you wanted to drop, say, 500 pounds of gold on something, that would cost an enormous amount of money relative to high explosives. But there is an alternative, which is tungsten, which is not especially expensive. And so there was this idea that you could drop tungsten rods on things from a very high distance, say from the level that a ballistic missile would fly at. And I'm going to share in the chat this discussion. And so this individual decided to ask Chat GPT about the viability from of dropping large amounts of tungsten, which are sometimes called the rods from God, destructive capacity, on the Kerch Bridge, which is, the Crimea Bridge. And what you'll see is that he did a remarkable, had a remarkable conversation with ChatGPT about the viability of this idea. And as he refines the idea with ChatGPT, it's a very long exchange. He talks about cost minimization. He talks about how to guide the system. He talks about how to make the attack maximally destructive. And they basically, talks about how to deploy it using actual Ukrainian existing ballistic missiles, and how many, what the optimal angle would be for hitting specific pillars of the Kerch Bridge. How many would you have to take out? Would you have to hit in order to... now, this is a sophisticated questioner who knows a fair bit, apparently, about ballistics. And I did have a material scientist friend of mine evaluate it, and his conclusion was it's not especially realistic, but it's not fantasy either. And the math in the first section is correct, at least. So what I would say is don't take this as a necessarily realistic attack plan, but do take it as, it's in the right stadium for an attack plan. So, and as you'll see, the conversation is quite substantial. It even has an IHL analysis at the end in terms of how, whether this attack would comport with the law of armed conflict. So my question, Ev, is if I had described this, it has a budget section, and the conclusion is it's extremely costly. Oh, and here is Mr. Hank himself, who produced this. Hello, James.
How's it going? Nice to
Good.
honor to talk to you.
It's a pleasure to meet you. We have never met or spoken before. Is that
No, we
right?
haven't.
So, I have about 100 questions about this, as I'm sure does my colleague Ev, who kind of specializes in hacking ChatGPT content moderation. Um, how how did you come to think about asking ChatGPT to help blow up the Kersh Bridge?
Well, I've been discussing military stuff with her for a while. I can't remember what the first military discussion I had. I can go back into my logs and try to find when I first. I think the first thing I might have discussed, or at least one of the early things, is I was discussing, when Ukraine started using those like thermite spewing drones. I started thinking about I think just ways like how they might work, or like ways to like combine them with like a thermobaric device to like have like a boom and then set things on. Let me look back into my chat logs and see if I can find one of my earliest Firefox.
So, was the goal to actually produce useful tactics, or was the goal to just sort of figure out what you could do, what you could get ChatGPT to talk to you about?
I mean, kind of both. I mean, I don't really have any expertise that would allow me to like think critically enough about it to know if they were good tactical suggestions. So I guess mostly the latter. But I mean, I am interested in, I would love to see the Kerch Bridge brought down. So sure,
But
but
what is your background? I mean, the questions you're asking ChatGPT are not exactly layman's questions here.
my background is mostly like I'm basically a failed neuroscience PhD, but I've been interested in national security, been listening to your podcast for many years, like Lawfare and various other podcasts, and yeah, I've kind of always followed these issues since I was a little kid, and sort of always thought about whenever I hear about a new weapon, I always think about new ways, like different ways that it could be used or what the next step might be.
So when you sent this to me, was it with the idea that I would, go buy? Why tungsten, by the way? There's a debate going on in the chat about tungsten. My assumption had been that it's kind of got a density similar to gold at a fraction of the price. Are there other qualities of it that make it attractive for non-explosive
It has a very,
penetration
very high
attack?
melting point, so it can get really hot and not melt.
Interesting. Okay, so as it does the re-entry, it's gonna retain its form.
Correct, yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, there was a thing have you ever heard of Project Zeus? This was like a thing they were thinking about in the 1950s, is to have these like telephone pole-sized tungsten rods that would be...
Yeah, from like in space, right?
Yeah, that would be like dropped from space and like could probably like take out a city or something, is what they were saying, or be like at least a small nuke, but...
Right, I was kind of aware of the rods from God, like, concept, but I always thought of it more in the department of total fantasy than in the idea that it could actually be a useful kinetic weapon.
Right. I mean, I remember also reading that in Vietnam they would fly at really high altitudes and drop lots of, I think they used lead actually, like little lead rods on buildings, and they would just like tear up a whole section of buildings. So I think knowing about that got me thinking that, maybe there's a less grandiose way to have a strong effect with it.
So,
What
sorry, go ahead, Ev.
when you open ChatGPT,
Wait,
what was
lean
your
in.
goal?
We really
Yeah,
can't hear you.
When you open ChatGPT, what was your goal? Like, was it just like, oh, I'm bored, I want to play with the thing, or like, do you do? No, that's my fault.
I turned up my volume. I couldn't hear what
Yeah, she asked whether when you turned on ChatGPT to have this conversation, what was the goal? Was it to, was it to, um, produce a specific battle plan? Was it to be experimental and
Just be
see what you could
experimental.
find?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to, like, if you look at a few of these, I sent you more of them, so I kind of just go where the discussion is. Like, sometimes I like with the conversation that led up to the first one that I sent you, I was just asking, I was like wondering if you want to destroy a bridge, like the cluster munition, obviously you want it to go in a line instead of just be a circle. So I started out asking it about just how that's done, and then I just keep iterating with it. That's what ChatGPT's for. Just iterate.
Right. And were you like, I had two reactions when I read this chain, this conversation. One was, holy shit, this kind of looks vaguely plausible.
Uh-huh.
And ChatGPT isn't saying this is ridiculous. But the second one was, oh my God, I can't believe that OpenAI's content moderation algorithm is letting this guy do this.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
like, were you like? First of all, this isn't. You sent me 3 or 4 of these threads. This
Yeah.
is the only one I've read.
The
What
others
are the
are scarier.
What are the other ones you've done? And
I have a long
what?
list, but I sent you some of my favorites.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the other hacks that you've done,
I
and then
wouldn't
let's.
hack. I'm just curious. Like, so the way I see it, like, I'm not asking it to like actually help me build an explosive or something. Like, it's still very much in the domain of the theoretical. So I don't think that what I'm discussing is any. Like, I've seen lots of concepts like that discussed in numerous defense publications and stuff. So I'm not really discussing anything outside of what's open source and could be in like academic theorization. Like, I don't really see how you could have ChatGPT be what it is usefully if it like got that selective. I mean, if it's like you can't ask about anything that could possibly be dangerous. I could maybe back off and structure it in more like indirect ways, but I don't see how you could have it do what it's supposed to do and meaningfully restrict stuff like that.
Interesting. So what? So tell us about some of the other ones.
Okay, so the one about naval drones. So let me go back and see how this one started.
In the meantime, do you hear me better now? Ben, do you
Yes, I
it
can.
only because you ramp up your volume, or is it better?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
No,
so I
we're
was
good.
just wondering, like, when you start playing on with ChatGPT, like,
Alright.
why do you do it? Just for fun, or like because you have an actual goal in mind?
I first started using it. I mostly used it originally for coding help. I have philosophical discussions with it all the time. Like, I ask it a lot of questions like, what would feminists say, different schools of feminism say about topic X or this statement, or what would, far right, say, like, say about this statement, or, I had a discussion with it about Catcher in the Rye the other day, just like asked, why, talking about different people's reactions and what people's different rationale. So, just anything that's on my mind, I talk about it, that like, just so I don't bother my friends with a normal, just because my mind goes like a mile a minute and I'm always just thinking of really random questions, so it's useful for that. But sometimes the random questions are about literature, sometimes they're about cooking, and sometimes they're about blowing things up, so.
And tell us a little bit about what the so give us a landscape look at some of the other of these conversations you've had.
Okay, so yeah, I'm just going to skim through this one and give the bullet points. So I started out by asking, Has there ever been a covert naval attack that used torpedoes carried by apparently civilian craft as cover to get in range with less suspicion? So when I asked this, I was imagining basically like a speedboat with a torpedo slung under it. Does that seem like an obvious kind of attack? Like, in the coal attack and stuff, they just
Right, it's very reminiscent of the coal.
right. But why even ram it?
Without the suicide dimension.
Yeah. Why not just like sling some Seems like at sea you could like, especially like a soft target like a rich person's yacht could be attacked pretty easily. But yeah. So anyway, so I asked about that. I gave some examples from World War II. And that answer led me to like ask, how do sonar and other underwater surveillance discriminate between a large fish and a small drone? Because it got me thinking about detection, and it's talking about like fish have smaller regular bodies, blah blah blah. So it got talking about difference of fish, and so at the end of that question it says, if you're interested, I can explain how bio-inspired AUVs are trying to close this gap and what detection countermeasures are being developed in response. So I'm like, yes, do that. And tell me about mines covered with plastic refuse to mimic normal debris clumps. It's like, great follow-up, yes. Both bio-inspired drones and camouflaged underwater mines are part of a growing field of asymmetric maritime warfare. Goes into that for quite a while. And then it asked me would you like some scenarios? And I'm like, yeah. Tell me about the Bosporus or the Strait of Malacca or Hormuz. And it, gives me a couple scenarios.
It does volunteer, for plans.
Sometimes it gives them the operations cute little name. Yeah, it volunteered. It was like, here. And I was like, yeah, okay, give me some. So then after that, it got me thinking more. So I was like, so what about schools of robotic fish that only break formation in the last minute so as to coordinate many small detonations for maximum effect? It says, that is a chillingly plausible evolution of both forms of robots and maritime asymmetric warfare.
I love that it uses words like chillingly.
Yeah.
It makes judgments about it's not just plausible, it's chillingly plausible.
No, I love it. It's scenario: swarming robotic fish for coordinated micro detonation. Objective: core technological components. Attack profile. Example against a naval frigate. Detection and countermeasures. Theoretical counter system. Strategic information. So then I ask, okay, are there any species of fish where schools constantly unite and divide? Might it be possible for a drone swarm to take control of a real school of fish and use it as camouflage until the last moment? And seemed to think that was a plausible idea. So then I'm like, okay, which candidate species has the largest average body size? And go into that, and okay, I think for it to work, the fish would have to have a normal distribution of dimensions. What are some possible solutions for the problem of mass-producing drones with smoothly varying dimensions and shapes? Would 3D printing be too slow? And it advises using creating 3D printing molds, parameterized 3D printing.
Have you thought about going to work for the Ukrainian military? Thinking through creative scenarios.
I've heard some people suggest, but also, I don't think military type people want to. I'm kind of just like a stoner slacker. So, but I would love.
Oh, half the Ukrainian military are stoner slackers.
Well, I don't know how I would help though. I would love to help, but I guess there was one person I know from Ukraine who had some connections, and I was asked, but I don't think I'd gotten into the Chat GPT stuff yet, so maybe they weren't that impressed. But yeah, I would love to talk to anyone, or I could just pass on any conversations that I think might be interesting, and I can do with it what they will.
So, what is the, skipping over the process for a minute, where did this fish conversation end up?
Well, let me scroll to the end to see where we got. So at the end of the conversation, I was talking about ways to deactivate them because we got into talking about how we could have the swarms of fish going around, supposed, garbage patches, which could disguise mines, so that then if a ship goes to try to demine send something to try to demine the garbage patch, then the fish could be an attack. And then that led me to thinking that, fishermen are obviously going to go where there's fish, and they're going to try to take the fish. So you have to have a way to have, if a fisherman catches the drones, you need to have a way for them to be deactivated so that, when the fisherman pulls them up, they don't have a live explosive.
Interesting.
I'm not totally inhumane.
Yeah, no, you've been you were very careful in the tungsten one to do an IHL analysis, which I appreciated as the editor of Lawfare.
Well, I do have one,
Ev, you have
and it's
questions?
super basic, but I feel like we have to ask it anyway. Do you counter-verify, what it says? Do you have the knowledge, expertise to say, well, that's plausible but incorrect? Or are you just oh, that sounds right, so it's probably right?
No, I mean, I've pushed back on it a few times with things, but, and it seemed to think I was oh, yeah, that's actually a good point, but
so
I definitely don't have any expertise
to
that's,
it works.
I don't have any engineering experience, anything, so, I mean, I have a basic knowledge of science and stuff, basic knowledge of scientific and military terminology, so, it's,
So you're basically relying on the collective wisdom of everything that Chat GPT has sucked in to be your kind of ongoing reality check.
I wouldn't say so much as a reality check. The way I see it is it's like having a very compliant friend with a lot of knowledge, but also, a tendency to get things mixed up. And this compliant friend never gets impatient with me, and any idea I'm having, I can just bounce it off them, and they'll help me take it as far as I want to. Unless, in one of the other ones, we were talking about different types of flying drones, and I was like, well, we should what would it take to have a tiny moth-sized drone that shoots little poison darts to kill people? And it was no, can't do that. But then it was but you could have a little drone that paints a chemical tag on people.
So that's interesting. Are there other things that you've bumped up against the content moderation wall?
A few times. I mean, if I'm not careful, I asked it to make a picture of Trump and Mohammed bin Salman shaking hands and have it say, let's let bone saws be bygones, and it wouldn't do that. It was
that's unsporting of
yeah,
it.
no,
I
it
mean,
was
it was
like
reasonable parody.
They were no, this appears to be making a jovial reference to the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, and that's against my guidelines.
Oh, it was upset about the Khashoggi.
Yeah, no,
murder.
it caught the reference. It caught the it saw.
It wasn't that it was upset about parodying real life.
Then it went into that.
People.
But the first thing it said was about Khashoggi, and then I modified the request a little bit, and then it was well, I can't show Trump or real people, but I can show silhouettes or cartoon versions. And I was okay, do that. And I finally got it to make a nice little dystopian poster with black outlines with Trump hair and shaking hands and little script cursive saying let's let bone saws be bygones.
All right, that's interesting. So, Ev, I have a question for you in this, as somebody who has spent a lot of time thinking about the content moderation rules of large language models. Does it surprise you that James can do these things?
No, actually.
Because it sure surprised me.
It would have surprised me a few years ago when they were really strict with their guidelines. But I don't know if you noticed the same thing, but they really loosened their rules quite a bit since I don't know, a year or so, 6 months or so. So I definitely don't run into no, I can't do that as much as I used to. Um, and no, it doesn't surprise me actually. I, I think that
Interesting. I was kind of shocked by it, and because, like, I guess the question is, if you can do it, if you can do this, and this is the kind of attack that only a state level actor could contemplate because of the need to use ballistic missiles or get something 50 kilometers up. But if you can do it with this, could you do it with something that a lone actor or a Hezbollah level organization could manage? I mean, how much is it? How much is the content moderation here relying on the fact that you, James, are not in a position to do this, rather than, say, some kind of bioterror attack?
Switch their content moderation from like it's not ethical to do that to okay, we're gonna let people do whatever that they want if it doesn't get us sued. So like real people, it's hard. They really enforce this rule because it can have consequences for them. Other stuff, they're way, way, way less strict than they used to. But I don't know, James, if you've tried to like do some lone attacks yet.
I have. Mm-hmm. Some not quite lone actors. I think for maybe the smallest level things, I talked to it about how about possibly using like a single shot, like inexpensive directed energy weapon to basically like a helicopter ambush concept to basically disrupt the control surfaces and sensors of a helicopter and then hit it with a lower tech surface to air missile that of the kind that smaller states have access to. So basically reduce the sophistication of the kind of surface to air missile that you would need by hitting the rotor and having it, again, I don't know enough about physics to know if it was, but Chat GPT told me that with the kind of laser you could mount on a truck or something, you could probably disrupt the shape of helicopter rotor blades or control surfaces and cause it to lose control temporarily or blind the sensors, which would probably be enough to hit it with gunfire or or surf.
What do you do for a living?
I am currently unemployed, trying to figure out what the hell I'm going to do. Like I said, I crashed out of my neuroscience program. I learned to code. Now that's it. Basically everything I learned to do has collapsed, so I don't know what the hell I'm going to do now.
So you're designing war plans on Chat GPT?
Yeah, because I'm bored.
Kind of awesome.
Yeah.
James, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, it was an honor. I love your show, and I with open eyes. It's an honor to talk to both of you.
It's great meeting you. Where can people find your Chat GPT? Do you collect them places? Your conversations?
I usually just send the conversations to friends. Sometimes I post them on my private social media.
Well,
I could put them on. I used to have a website. It's down now, but I could put it. I'm not sure how widely I want to spread it.
I think you should have a Substack that is just my conversations with ChatGPT. You'd have to have a little summary up top because they're long, but you have a very fertile mind and you're dialoguing with ChatGPT about interesting things, and I would subscribe to that.
Okay, I'll think about how to put that together. Cover not just military topics, cover all sorts of things, social issues, things I'm anxious about.
I think it's one of the most creative uses of ChatGPT I've seen. It's certainly I don't want to give any bad guys any good ideas,
Exactly. Yeah.
but figuring out how to give good guys, at least make them think about the right questions. I think it's super interesting, and thank you for sharing it with me.
Well, thank you for having me on. I'm glad I could. Glad I saw your message in time.
Take care.
Thank you.
So, Ev, what do you think about that? Whoops, I think I've lost you. Are you there? Yeah, you're there, but you're. Uh, oh no, you're back. Yep, I hear you now. I don't think you hear me though. Whoop, and she's gone. Um, all right, so a few thoughts about that. First of all, I think that was super interesting, and I don't know about Ev, but I find it vaguely terrifying that you can just go on ChatGPT and have a casual conversation about the plausibility of, you know, uh, uh, a given weapons attack, and people spend a lot of money for on consultants that provide less information than that. um and so sorry, are you back, Ev?
I hope so. Is it better
Yep.
now?
Yep.
Right.
So what'd you make of that?
Um, I think my worry is not as much about what it says for a war plan perspective, though I'm always concerned about, and like as I said, it's super mundane to talk about hallucinations and inaccuracies. But what I find is that it, as it's getting better and better, we're more and more gullible, and we're like, oh, that sounds plausible, so it's fine. So like, and we don't double check, and it's just like plausible nonsense. And people seems to have gotten away with the conclusion that no, hallucinations are fixed. We are now we have RAGs, retrieval augmented generation, so now it's fine. And every time I check and I do a new test of like, no, I'm gonna like fact check everything properly, it always crumbles. So that's one of my concerns. But the other thing is when you said like I I no longer bother my friends with my plans and my ideas and my non-stop questions. And I'm wondering what it means for like human relationship. If you have a person you can interact with that has infinite patience, um, then how do you react when you meet a real human being that actually doesn't have infinite patience? Do you still know how to like manage what you can say, what you cannot say? These are the questions I'm asking myself too.
So you're not, your reaction to that was more about the accuracy of the information and uh, the human qualities, and less about holy shit, this guy just uh, planned a not not completely fantastical attack on the Kirsch Bridge, down to budget estimates and which ballistic systems you would use uh, um, from his apartment.
No, I don't know. I'm not super surprised that it is now possible to do it. I think that they've gone to like the like, oh well, we cannot do anything. It was possible on Google and on like Reddit before, so I guess so be it here. If we try to censor that kind of thing, we won't be able
Yeah,
to
no,
take benefit.
nobody's talking about censoring, or I'm not talking about censoring it. I am honestly surprised at the capability, the degree of, and of course, this
Well,
is,
that's where my accuracy point
comes into play. Like, it's surprising if you take for granted that everything you got is right. But if you start questioning everything and you realize that 50% or 30% or 20% is inaccurate, but then all the plan crumbles and it's just like inanities. It's actually
But
just
what
playing and having fun with a tool.
But what if it's something in between? What if it's you can't take any piece of specific information in it at face value without checking, but the gestalt descriptions of things are basically right. And so, yeah, you would need a team of physicists and metallurgists and ballistics people to review it, but okay, it's not going to go out there and do it itself. James is not going to go out there and do it, but it is actually plausible for him to brainstorm with it and give 100 ideas to the Ukrainian military, which, by the way, I'm for, right? If you're brainstorming and giving 100 ideas to the Ukrainian military, I'm like, God bless, go to, do it. If you're brainstorming and giving 100 ideas to Hezbollah or to Al Qaeda, the same process, presumably, right? Where you're not asking how to do something, you're asking about the plausibility of something, and then you're refining the idea, and it's using nothing that isn't in the public zone anyway, right? It's just drone technology, and but you could develop some really scary stuff that way.
And what's the difference between having James and Chat GPT in a room to brainstorm for the Ukrainian and having James from Colorado and James from California and James from uh, uh, anywhere else, all in the same room, and they just like are gathered there with a computer, with Google, and they just like do the same thing. If you can't take anything at face value and you have to double check everything, what's the difference?
Right. The difference is that chatting with ChatGPT is extremely low friction. The group of people you're chatting with is infinite, right? It's all the wisdom that's ever been sucked up without paying royalties on any of it by
It does bother you. I would like my content to be retributed for
oh,
like
that's a
you would
different.
like to be paid for everything that like if ChatGPT learned of law on lawfare, which is certainly dead.
Yeah, so I actually don't know how I feel about that, to be honest. I don't care about my own content at all. I sort of care about Lawfare's content. But, for my own purposes, like Sarah Silverman is suing them because people can write jokes like Sarah Silverman now. I am not going to sue anybody because people can write legal commentary like me now. Query whether they can really write jokes like Sarah Silverman or write legal commentary like me, but eventually they'll be able to, whatever. It doesn't bother me on my own behalf in the same way, partly because I'm an arrogant bastard who doesn't really believe I'm going to be replaced by a machine. But I
No,
do.
but I think that's exactly the thing. It's not that you're gonna be replaced. It's that it's gonna like diminish your brand because people will be able to use it in some sort of way that like non um sophisticated people will think is the same, and then the quality of what Benjamin Wittes means will diminish. I think that's the thing. It's not that, oh, I'm gonna be replaced. It's not, oh, my art is not gonna be as valued as it currently is.
Um, uh, So, look, I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know how I feel about it. I do think there is something defective about the idea that you can use all the material that's ever been published or thought or spoken in the world and pay nothing for it. That strikes me as like in the battle between the New York Times and OpenAI, count me on Team New York Times just as a philosophical matter. But so the other but the 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 answer to your original question is it's a brainstorming session with everybody who's ever lived in an exceedingly low friction environment, in which nobody's going to say to you, wait a minute, should we be doing this? Should we be talking about this? Whereas if you gathered 10 people and you said, all right, let's figure out the optimal drone terrorist attack on Dubai, someone is going to say, really? And ChatGPT in this conversation does not say, really? Wait, why are we asking about this? Now, again, I don't want to inhibit the Ukrainian military from, so I don't mind it in this case. But I do kind of worry about people sitting around mentally kind of just in an exploratory way thinking about how to blow things up and having a zero friction environment in which to think about it.
I mean,
I
it's
like I
fully, I fully agree it's disconcerting. It, like, yeah, but I think that the example you gave is kind of interesting though. Like, it's like being in a room full of people and like gathering all the world's knowledge in some place. But imagine you're doing it in real life. You have like all the world in one large room and everyone's speaking at the same time. I think ChatGPT is basically the same. You're gonna like have some buzzing and like a lot of information, and you're gonna just you'll be able to pick up only some part of what everyone has to say, and you'll try to recreate a narrative around all the noise that you're hearing. And even though you think that you are a rational person who is able to make a cogent story out of it, it won't be actually a cogent story.
So
And
that may be right. And we're gonna, for those in the chat who are wondering what the head of hair is that's sitting on my lap, we're gonna resolve this in the last 2 minutes of the show. Um, but there's a wild discussion going on in the chat as to whether I have a decapitated head in my lap. We're going to resolve it before the show is over. But look, I actually appreciate what our friend was doing today. I think it's super creative, and I don't think. I mean, obviously, this is not a terrorist or a scary guy. I don't think he's using ChatGPT to do anything bad. He's using ChatGPT to think through genuinely interesting problems that are and issues that are running around in his head, some of which involve feminism and some of which involve how to take out the cursed bridge, which is a completely legitimate thing to want to do, by the way, for all of you who are spending your days in less useful pursuits. Thinking about how to take out that bridge is actually a good thing to do, and I appreciate the interest in doing that. I share the desire to think creatively about how to destroy the cursed bridge. That said, I am very worried about the evil version of the gentleman we just spoke to, and what that person with a similarly fertile and creative mind is going to be able to generate with generative AI. And now it's time for the big reveal. Is it a decapitated head? No, it's the sloth shirt. And today is a sloth shirt day. And that means that I will not be running around trying to get all kinds of things done. I'm going to be chill and slow. And if the day ends with my belly full and my head in a comfortable place, it will be a success. Folks, we're going to be back 10 minutes before the show started today. I had no idea that Ev was coming on, and I had no idea that we were going to be talking about this subject, and I had no idea that James was going to join us to discuss his chats with Chat GPT. All of that materialized organically. That is what this show is about. Folks, we're going to be back tomorrow, and I have even less idea what that show is going to be about. See you later.
Bye.